Right. Evening, everyone. I think I'm at the right place in terms of our slides, and I'll show you those slides in a second. Why would I open tonight's lecture with that? Why would I open tonight's lecture showing you that? In particular, that one, guys, the Hong Kong index, which has dropped by 13, it's trillions of dollars, 13%. Why would I start by showing you that tonight? Is it to depress you? Because someone said to scare you. Yeah. So China has come out very strongly in terms of the tariffs, and we'll talk about that. But they essentially claim that America is trying to destroy the world at their own expense. You know, that America wins, the rest of the world should lose. So it came out very, very strongly. But I think the reality is that, you have to be so careful when it comes to the orange, I don't know, the orange knickknack, that you can't say whatever you want. Yeah, and other issues here, guys, other issues that essentially will dominate for the rest of the week. Yeah, that's it, Bianx. Stocks fell through the floor. Last week, the New York Stock Exchange lost about $5 trillion in 2 days. The value of this US stock exchange, $5 trillion in 2 days. Yeah, they're also interesting now, and I'll get to this in a second, this one. So people realized, get the cars to America, because in a very, very, very short period of time, you are going to pay 10% plus another 25% and whatever other tariffs Trump had imposed. In terms of, yeah, I showed that one. And you can see this, the idea of the EU going back and saying, yeah, we won't charge you tariffs, but get rid of the tariffs you've charged us. And guys, there's so many. We haven't gotten Monday the 7th yet, because the New York Stock Exchange is not as badly affected today, but we'll see towards the end of the day. And a whole bunch of other things, guys. The Rand now, which is nearly 25 Rand to the pound. So if you buy a pound with a Rand, you'll get about the equivalent of 5p, 5 cents, slightly less. No, it'd be 4 cents. My apologies. You'd get 4p or 4 cents for your 1 Rand. Yeah, so a lot happening. Trump claiming wins because, oh, this is my favorite. My favorite. Yeah, denies using market sell-offs, etc. He says this is not his fault that this all happened. It's something else. So yeah, you people seek new havens. My biggest concern is that the gold price has dropped, which is concern, because normally when this happens, people find gold to be a safe haven. And that's where we start tonight. And I'd go back to that slide. All organizations, and I think we know this, are part of a system that's an open system. So the system is all those bits and pieces that connect together to make the organization effective, to work together to make the organization efficient. An open system is one that sits in the middle of an environment. So if you're the organization over there and the environment sits outside it, an open system is impacted and impacts the environment. Oh gosh, that's really awful. A closed system, not many anymore. Now, what Trump is trying to do with America is to create a closed system, around build a moat around America, because he believes they can supply everything to themselves, they can build, etc. Now, that's not how the world works, but that's a story for another day. And then subsystems would be your different departments, would be elements within the broader system. Now, as a rule, for an organization to survive or for a system to survive, sorry, and I've now closed the slide like an idiot, and I still have the wrong one open. So for a system to survive, what we need is for, as an organization, the organization to align perfectly with the environment, the insanity that's the environment, and that every single element in the organization aligns perfectly with each other. And that's what makes you survive. And the subsystems, very important. So when we think of your systems perspective, from the environment, we deal with those inputs. And in terms of what Trump has done, those inputs have become very uncertain, in particular if you're an importer. And then we transform those into products and services. Really good organizations have synergy, which means 1 + 1 = 3. And then entropy is a systems collapse. We see 1 + 1 is 3 at the moment. You know, supposedly McLaren, although I don't think they have the best drivers in Formula One, and entropy would be those. Yeah, I'm almost going to say it's flipping hell. It's Aston Martin is in collapse. And then how does all these things come together? Essentially, if you keep your organization aligned with the environment, if you adjust your thinking and your plans based on the realities of the moment, and remember what your realities are in the moment, it's that. It is, for crying, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm really having a wobbly, useless evening. Your realities are that at the moment. So as this is happening, you need to adjust and think on your feet. And that's what the contingency perspective suggests. So I'm going to close that. And then obviously, how do they all fit together? So your classical management theories, your planning, organizing, leading, controlling, all the efficiencies around that, the importance of human behavior and understanding how people interact and how people essentially work and operate, and what motivates and what demotivates them in an organization. And here, those things that are measurable, the sort of measuring quality, measuring standards, etc. And that is where we're at. So in terms of some of the newer theories, so theory Z, and geez, I think I might have done this with you, is In Search of Excellence. In Search of Excellence is Tom Peters, and they talk about being beyond close to the customer and interacting and engaging with the customer and understanding the customer and impressing the customer. So in terms of the modern world, this is what we deal with. A highly unpredictable economy. We know that globalization and the integrated nature of how the world has linked together, and how different countries need each other, and how different countries can either act as competitors or as opponents, impact businesses individually, the need for ethics and corporate governance, and then also the focus on quality and this move to a service economy. And the service economy is also now dated because we've moved to a knowledge economy, and the power of social media. So it's within this context, guys, that we have to do business, and the context essentially takes us here. So if we look at part 5, and remember, guys, yeah, that I'm trying to edit last week's lectures because it tells me that I have got protected copyrighted material on there, which I have no idea where it is. I've deleted different parts and it just won't allow me to load. I will keep trying though. So the outcomes for tonight, guys, you can see what we're looking at. The idea of motivation, the content approaches. When we talk about the content approaches, it is this idea that we have certain needs, and that in order to address those needs, we'll be motivated to address those needs. And then we'll talk about the process approaches, which suggest that people are cool, calm, and collected in deciding whether they are motivated. We'll also look at reinforcement and how reinforcement and the kinds of behaviors that we reward versus the behaviors that we punish essentially will cause a person to act in a certain way. And then we'll look at other strategies, and then we'll talk about money and motivation. So upfront, I am going to say that I don't believe money motivates. And we'll talk about just what I've said, because I want you to think about it. I do not believe money motivates, but I don't want to discuss that. I'll leave that with you until we get to the end of the lecture. Actually, we're not going to get to that today, so maybe we can talk about that. Who agrees with me that money doesn't motivate? Who agrees with me that money doesn't motivate? Who says money motivates? Who is not understanding the question? Okay, I'll talk about it then later. Let's look at motivation. Okay, so Bianca, you believe does motivate? Yeah, motivate. How? Yeah, no, there are studies that say that. I still disagree with those studies. I don't think money motivates. I think money makes you do things that you normally wouldn't consider doing. So that's not motivation. When money moves you to do something that you essentially do because of the hope that you'll be paid at the end, that's not motivation. To a point, Clearnay, I hope I'm saying that right, Clearnay, is that, how do you pronounce your name? Different generations? Yeah, and maybe, I mean, I definitely am a lot older than everyone here. So maybe for me, money doesn't motivate. I don't believe money motivates, and it's interesting always to see what people say, and we'll get to that. Okay, so it's about accolades, Tariq. Okay. Yeah, I think money moves you to do things that you normally wouldn't consider doing. For me, that's not motivation. So the moment you work for money, you are constantly going to look for other jobs. So for me, money must be the consequence of doing something you love, not the reason for doing it. Let me just say that again. Money must be the consequence of doing something you love rather than the reason for doing your job. So my view is very different to some of the studies and even what the textbook will say. Let me just say that again. Money must be the consequence of doing something you love, not the reason for doing it. Any comments about that? Consequence of doing something you love rather than the reason for doing it. Is that a bit naive? Nice. But naive, yeah, that's fine. But remember, it's my opinion, and I really believe that. And I really believe that, Bianx, but I can't talk for everyone. So it is naive. Yeah. Okay, Johnson, that's an interesting point as well. Okay. It would be fantastic, Bianx. Yeah. I think when you work for money, or sometimes people will do some of the strangest things for money. People murder their parents so that they can get access to inheritance for money. That's money making you do something you normally wouldn't consider doing. We can think of others, Menendez brothers. Yeah. Well, we appears that there were other factors at play with the Menendez, but we'll see what the updated court case says. Okay, guys, if we look at motivation, it talks about things that cause you to behave in certain ways. So again, my definition of money not motivating is irrelevant here, because money can cause you to do certain things. And that's why, money being the reason for doing a job. Sometimes people take really awful jobs because the money is good and they hate every moment of their job, but they work for the weekend. So, in terms of motivation in the workplace, I think there are a couple of things. I think you could be the most motivated person in the world. If, however, you don't have the skills or the abilities to do it, that motivation will not translate into performance. So remember, there's a vast difference between motivation and performance. Motivation is energy and desire and things like that. Ability is what allows you to translate that motivation into performance. But if you're not given the tools to do the job, you can be as motivated as you want. You are not going to be able to do the job. So, in terms of work performance, we have to have all three of those elements addressed. You need to create an environment where people have this sense of purpose and desire. You need to make sure that people are skilled and competent in their job, and you have to make sure that people have the resources. And those three together is what gives us that individual performance. Now, the problem with motivation is that you cannot measure it, although we attempt to when we do, surveys in terms of morale, etc. So, in terms of your motivation, and again, this is based on content theories, it talks about a need or deficiency. So, want a new car? Let's go see what we can do to get the new car, get a job, whatever the case may be, behave in a certain way, and then see if that behavior worked. Now, if, for example, you have a need or deficiency for a promotion and you work hard, you do whatever else to get the promotion, if that works, if that translates into behavior and that behavior works, then you're likely to repeat it in the future. If the behavior failed and you didn't get the promotion, you're likely to change it in the future. Now, for me, that's very naive. Okay. So if we look at some of the motivation bits that have gone before, the first one, Taylor, and remember we spoke about Taylorism. Taylorism, we still see Taylorism in Formula One, where you have pit stops and people train narrowly and they practice and everything is procedurized. I think the first one is the idea of the importance of incentive pay. That incentive pay often based on a piece rate. And what a piece rate is that every time you complete a piece of work, you get paid a certain amount. The second one, where did this come from, guys? What studies did this come from? We did it last week. You should know this. We did this last week. The Hawthorne studies, of course, Michaela, well done, really well done. So Hawthorne studies, remember the relationship between illumination, how light to how dark it is, and obviously productivity levels. And they found that whether you made it lighter or darker, it didn't matter. Productivity went up because all of a sudden people were paying attention, showing interest in workers. And then, yeah, I think it looks for this, guys, creating an environment where people can be fantastic, where people want to make a difference. So when we look at the content approaches, it really is about internal needs. It's about desires to satisfy a particular need. I hate teaching this, although I will. Maslow, and we know that Maslow has been proven to be quite deficient. What is good about Maslow as a theory? What is good about Maslow as a theory? What is good about Maslow as a theory? Because it's deficient, let's be honest. What is good about it? There must be something good about it. We still see it in the textbook 100 years later. Guys, it takes something as complex as a human being, and it gives us an idea of the needs, and self-actualization is an important part. But if you think of how complex people are in terms of personality, etc., that's it, Nandipa. It gives us the ability to take something as complex as a human being and make it understandable, and make it understandable. What is interesting, and we see this at play, and not that anyone watches it anymore, although it still is on TV, and there obviously are still fans out there. But when you think of Survivor, who has seen Survivor before? Who has seen Survivor before? Yeah, Survivor the show. Yeah, yeah, I think most people have seen Survivor. Who still watches Survivor? Sorry, you can stop doing the previous question. Who still watches Survivor? I don't think anyone does, and I don't understand how they're still making it. But when we look at Survivor, Maslow is 100% accurate in terms of what happens. Yeah, adulting got to a number of people. It is a wonderful description. Now, deeper. I might steal that. I might steal that one day. It's awful being an adult. Just don't. Yeah, what's the TV? Can I just say, guys? Yeah, it's awful being an adult. I hate being an adult. One day when I'm one, I will hate it even more. So when we look at Survivor, the first thing is that when you arrive there, you find a water source, you find a food source, physiological needs. Build the basic shelter, physiological needs. Once you've been there for a while and you've satisfied a water source, and fire is fairly important, you then go and satisfy your security needs. You take the basic shelter and you turn it into something sturdy, get it off the ground so that animals can't get to you and won't flood, etc., etc. And that's when the game starts. I think Survivor is a social game. And the need to belong, that social need, is an important part of what causes the drama in Survivor. And then, yeah, I would hope that, as you start winning, that these will satisfy self-actualization. Oh dear Lord, please tell me that you don't become self-actualized by winning Survivor. I mean, I think that would be very, very strange. For me, self-actualization is a moving target. I mean, the reality is the more you achieve, the more you challenge yourself. So very few people, and Maslow wrote this in his original writings, that very few people ever become self-actualized, because the truth is that the more you achieve, self-actualization is um, to be honest with you, I couldn't give two hoots about my PhD, Tariq. For me, I did the PhD so that I could continue lecturing, and I've had it a long time. It was a relief more than anything else. I still I couldn't give two hoots about my PhD. For me, it was a relief that it was over. For me, I really don't care about my title, etc. Now, having said that, a lot of my colleagues who are now getting their PhDs are full of their own self-importance because of that. So I don't know. It's not my PhD that makes me do what I do here, guys. It was just, for me, a PhD was a relief. Other lecturers might tell you how successful they are and how much they've achieved, but for me, it was a relief more than anything else. I didn't do it for the title. I did it so that I could continue working, I think. So when we think of self-actualization, sorry if that's the wrong answer, guys, because I know a lot of people aspire to a PhD. I couldn't give two hoots about mine. So when we look at self-actualization, it is not an endpoint. It's not an endpoint. I think for me, it's Bianca, have you got a PhD? Because I think you have. One of my students is doctor someone on this course. Bianca, is that you? You've just started here and you have the best lecturer in the world. My gosh, you should be excited. So, so for me, self-actualization is not an endpoint. You don't have this target that makes you self-actualized. I think that the truth is the more you achieve, the more you challenge yourself. So we could argue that Mandela. So when Mandela democratized South Africa, you could argue that he had achieved being self-actualized, but he didn't. He went to become a world player, a world leader. And I think the more you achieve, so for me, self-actualization is something that is quite evasive. So certainly a PhD is not a self-actualize for me, a self-actualization thing. But I sit in meetings with people who got their PhDs yesterday, and then they'll introduce themselves as Dr. So and so. So what I now do in those meetings, I introduce myself as Master Henny, just to because I can't stand people who think that they're important because of that. I'm so sorry, guys. Maybe I shouldn't be more in love with my PhD. So very difficult to achieve. It is a moving target. So Maslow is there. I'm not going to go through it. They give you this. Now, Maslow we can use in marketing. If you're a marketer, who are the marketers here? Anyone in marketing? I don't have a single marketer. In sales, in advertising, Tandeka. So you could use this and you could say, create an advert that addresses each of those levels for a specific product. In business, you can say, let's create a job that addresses each of those marketing and branding. Very cool, Tandeka. Let's create a job that addresses each of those. Now, I don't know whether I agree with all of this. If job title is an esteem, I really and truly, but for a lot of people, job title, the idea of being a manager and a senior manager and a supervisor, for me, I couldn't care about a title. The evolution from Maslow was the ERG theory. Now, the theory said that Maslow has a lot of faults, and they believe that there are three levels of need. So the levels of need are existence. Now, that would have been your physiological and your security needs, your first two levels in Maslow. And then also relatedness needs would be your esteem and your growth. Sorry, your relatedness would be your social needs, and your growth would be the last two. Now, what the ERG theory says is that if there is some sort of process that stands in your way of achieving these different levels, you will focus on something else. So let's say you are unable to get ahead in an organization just because you're dealing with young managers, there are not many vacancies. What the theory argues is you would look at spending your time with friends and enjoying the work because of friends, or you would spend your time on making money. So when we think of someone like Scrooge, you guys know who Scrooge is? Scrooge from A Christmas Story. Scrooge, Christmas Story, guys. Christmas Carol. This is before your time, hey? But this person didn't have friends. No one liked him. So all he did is he became wealthier. Johnson, well done. He became wealthier. So we see some evidence of this. Often people who get stuck and who don't earn a lot will spend their time socializing and so forth. So this frustration regression says that when one of these needs is frustrated, you will focus on the other needs. Hertzberg two-factor theory, you've seen this one before as well. So Hertzberg said that traditionally when we looked at motivation, it looked at, satisfaction and dissatisfaction on a single continuum. So if you're not satisfied with your job, you are dissatisfied. And Hertzberg argued that that is inaccurate. And he said you need two continuums. You would need a satisfaction, no satisfaction continuum, and you would need a dissatisfaction, no dissatisfaction continuum. And he argued that that would be your motivators, and these would be the things that act as a foundation to your job, your hygiene factors. So in terms of that theory, the kind of foundational stuff, okay, dissatisfaction, no dissatisfaction, that continuum, two continua, not one, that would be the foundational stuff. So these things don't motivate. But in their absence, you don't have the foundation to use those for motivation on. So the things that need to be good but don't motivate would be good supervisors, would be decent working conditions, and working conditions in terms of it not being too light, not too dark, that it's well ventilated, that you have air cons, etc., that you get along with your co-workers, that you have a reasonable pay. So already Hertzberg would argue that salary doesn't motivate, money doesn't motivate. Hertzberg would argue that you have to pay somebody a reasonable salary, because if the salary is too low, they'll be dissatisfied. But if you give them a reasonable salary, there'll be no dissatisfaction. But on the basis of that, money doesn't motivate. In terms of the motivators, once you've sorted out the foundational stuff, yeah, a sense of achievement. And I know some people wrote that earlier, getting recognition, the job itself, the way it's designed, being given responsibility and giving opportunities for growth. Now, as a theory, on the face of it, it looks great. But the truth is, a lot of the data was manipulated in arriving at this theory. Having said that, this theory still works, guys. This theory still works. It still is logical enough to use. Any comments about Hertzberg's theory to be the way that we motivate people at work? Anything about Hertzberg's theory? Now, key in terms of that is that term there, job enrichment. And job enrichment is where you put people in charge of things that are at a higher level. You give them authority, you empower them, you give them higher levels of responsibility. It is job satisfaction. So in terms of what can we learn from this? This is another one. This is, why has this theory not got a name? Why is it not got a name? Okay, guys, yeah, just for the slide, it's called McClellan's theory. So McClellan's theory is based on this. It's based on the thematic, oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I'm so sorry, guys, when you can't spell the thematic apperception test. Now, it's the TAT test, but I would not risk typing TAT in here. And the thematic apperception test, and I'm just going to cheat a bit by going to here. It is where you show people a series of vague pictures. And let me see if this will take us to ones that we can see. Those are too small. My apologies. Let me see if I, yeah, not great. You show people a series of vague figures, and then they tell you about those figures. And from there, McClellan argues that you can discern their fears and ultimately their needs. So let's start with this one, this lady here. Okay, here are they. I just want this one. So we're looking at the left-hand one. Who wants to tell me what that picture means to them? The left-hand one, guys. Who wants to tell me what the left hand, what do you, if you were shown that picture in a therapy session, okay, the old lady's a bit creepy. Jealousy. So what is the jealousy there? Please take that further, Tariq. A gossiping nun. Okay. That one is one that often is used. Tandeka and Stephanie's. It's fear of old age. People worry about age and aging, and it's a concern about looking young. Now, if you were in a therapy session, that would be interpreted. And depending on your answers to these different questions, they would then discern, or the therapist would discern certain themes. And those themes often could be indicative of trauma, could be indicative of needs, could be indicative, as McLennan said, of, yeah, fear of wrinkles. It's too late for me. I've got plenty. I've got wrinkles in places that I don't have places, guys. This one, guys, the right-hand one, who wants to tell me what that picture means? I love how Michaela and Bianca just there's no metaphor. It's just straightforward what the picture says. This one here. Man, Bianca, dear goodness me, Bianca, you would be a therapist's nightmare. What does the picture say to you? Wandering eyes. Okay, I don't know what that means, but I can discern from that. Anyone else? She's concerned about him. What is wandering eyes? Please tell me that. Just unmute yourself, Michaela. What is wandering eyes? Okay, the woman's in love, the man doesn't.
Doc, he looks like he's looking to flirt with someone else.
Yeah, baby. Do you reckon he's a flirt, Michaela? I'm being recorded. I just said, yeah, baby. Yeah, that's it, Michaela. And often from there, guys, I think often from there people can discern, and often. So yeah, no, I don't want to try and read into it, because that's not the point here. There are a whole bunch of others that are used, guys, and depending on what you say, people pick up themes. There's some others here that are interesting. Yeah, let me find one that, yeah, this is an interesting one as well. If you saw that picture, what does the story tell? So these pictures are shown, and out of that, people will discern certain themes. Where's the one? And I'm trying to find one, and I can't see it, and it's annoying me now. Okay. You went to Catholic school, absolutely, Michaela, and you're distrustful of men. So the Catholic schoolgirl who's distrustful of men. How's that as an assessment, Michaela? Yeah, seeing someone die, so it's loss and the fear of loss. Okay, guys, so out of that, the thematic apperception test, McClelland devised this theory, and he said that there are three motivation needs. He didn't talk about levels or anything. He said there are three basic needs that can be discerned within people. The first one is need for achievement. So these are people who want to make a difference, who want to leave an imprint on the world. So when we think of high need for achievement people, for me, someone like Richard Branson would be there. Someone like Steve Jobs, who left a significant thumbprint on the world, is there. You know, real need to achieve. Need for affiliation would be the need to be around people, to work in teams, the need to essentially have some connect with people, guys. And then the need for power yeah, people that have the need to be large and in charge. So often what will happen is that if you have a need for power, you don't have a significant need for that. It would either be that you have that. So if you have that, you're Mother Teresa. So if you have that, you Mother Teresa, obviously with the need for affiliation and care being the dominant one. Need for power, you Donald Trump. Donald Trump has messed with the world markets because he can. If you look at those three, which ones describe you? And it's normally a combination of two, but give me your dominant one first. Which ones describe you? Affiliation, Tariq. Tariq, so what do you do as a job, boy? Okay, lots of achievement, wanting to leave their mark on the world. Nice. And okay, achievement and affiliation, Bianca, that's interesting. So you must be very good at driving teams, working in teams, getting teams excited. Also need for achievement and affiliation, Tandex, okay? Because it also suggests then, Tandeka, that you like properly set objectives and want to be challenged, but want to work in a team. Is that a fair comment, Michaela and Tandeka? Any need for power? Come on. Let's be honest. There will be one or two of you that have a need for power. Power. Okay, Steph. So positive power, not negative power. Anyone else want to share? Absolutely. So, Michaela, it makes, and I keep forgetting that you do that, but yes, I mean, absolutely. You can see why you're in that industry. No power. I want a simple life. Yeah, no, I don't want power either. Um, I don't know what my need is, actually. I would imagine it's more a need for achievement, but my definition of achievement is very different. I'm not good in teams, guys. I really am not good in teams. Yeah, I tend to not enjoy teams. I don't have a major need for power, though. I don't have a major need to have titles and things like that. But it's interesting in terms of this is, again, when you design a job, you have to understand who those individuals are. So you can do that thematic perception test to see what people's dominant needs are. And once we have a sense of their dominant needs, we can then create opportunities. For a need for achievement person, they want challenging objectives, they want feedback, they want recognition. Need for affiliation, stick this person in a group. Need for power, put the person in charge. Now, power sometimes is negative, but we'll make that positive power, as I think Steph had said there. Now, the process perspectives argue differently to the needs perspectives. The needs perspectives essentially would argue that motivation is instinctive. I'm hungry, I'm motivated to eat. Where your process perspectives will argue that people are cool, calm, and calculating in deciding whether they're going to be motivated. So motivation isn't instinctive. Johnson, is that the Belbin team? Johnson, is that Belbin? Belbin team roles? Yeah, I think it's Belbin. It looks like you're describing Belbin. If you guys ever get a chance, go read on Belbin team roles. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful theory. Okay. And it's Belbin. Yeah, spelled it right. Oh, she's today, Ongeziwe. That is such nonsense. Seriously, it is 20. Yeah, can I just say, guys, I have two rollabout inverters here. It gives me about 12, maybe 14 hours of power because of power breaks in Maritzburg. So process theories argue that people are calculating, cool, calm, and calculating in deciding whether they're going to be motivated. It's not just instinctive, am hungry, will be motivated. Comments about that? Because I would suggest when you decided to join this course, it wasn't a need. You went through a process. You assessed, you looked at what it could do for you. It's not just a need that would have brought you here. Comments about process theories, that people decide to be motivated instead of instinctively being motivated. Comments about that. Not a single person. 100%. Yeah, it is fickle, hey? Promotion, more money. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, dear Lord. I can't wait to pick on Johnson a bit later. Promotion is important. So the guys, the first one is the expectancy theory. And the expectancy theory for me is one of the better theories. I absolutely like the idea of the expectancy theory. And the way the expectancy theory works, and I'm going to just do my own version, and I'll talk about all the elements in a second. But for me, the expectancy theory is this. Okay, so, well, let me go back, and I just want to show you the three concepts before I start. Where are the three concepts? Not where are the three? Okay, so the three concepts are expectancy, valence, and instrumentality. So I can't see where instrumentality is. I'm not too worried about that now. So the way it works, and it's an interesting approach, is that it starts with the question. Now remember, it's a series of questions. If I put in effort, and that's effort, and I'm not going to write that out, okay? If I put in effort, will I be able to perform? If I perform, for Johnson, the preferred outcomes will be money and promotion. And how attractive are those outcomes? How attractive are those outcomes? So the theory argues that before someone actually does something, they'll ask the question, if I put in effort, will I be able to perform? Is that question always yes? If I put in effort, will I be able to perform? Why is it not always yes, Michaela? We often see it in math. And I don't want to pick on people, and some of, no, you guys are very young, so you all about and younger than my son, my oldest son. Who did math core? There it is, Tandeka, wonderful example. Yeah, that's it. That it is it. So often when it comes to math, and in what you guys did in undergrad with accounting as well, for some reason, people often believe no matter how hard they try, they won't be able to perform. Who did math lit at school? And don't worry, I'll only point and laugh once at you. Who did math lit? Bianx? No, man. Okay, math lit. Anyone else? Now I'm pointing and laughing at you. Boy Pelo, the same thing. Anyone else? Two people. So the rest of you did math core. At least two people that are honest. So all of you did math core. If you did math core, write core down now. Core, nice time, Michaela also. Yeah. So you would have had higher grade than standard grade, Cindy. So I'm assuming you did standard grade, Cindy. I did typing. Financial math, which is math lit. Oh my gosh. Okay. So guys, often with math, people believe that no matter how hard they try, they won't pass. The truth is, can I also just say, it happens with accounts as well. For some reason, despite having someone like Oxford, the Fox, as your lecturer, people can't do accounts. And the problem with that is if the answer is no, then there is no expectancy that if I put in effort, I expect to perform. It's not always there. So part of in the job, it's to give people skills, it's to give people positive experiences. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if we give people the right skills and competencies, if we give people positive experiences where they've achieved something, that generally will give you a yes. Okay. And then in terms of perform, if I perform, what outcomes are there? So for Johnson, the outcomes that he'll find attractive. And can I also just say, and this is important, my performance is instrumental in ensuring those outcomes. Who has been lied to by their organization before, where they said, if you meet these deadlines, we will give you a bonus? Has anyone ever been lied to? Parents do it as well. If you do this, we will do this positive thing. That your performance is instrumental in guaranteeing those outcomes. Because if companies lie and they promise bonuses and they don't pay it, people start believing no matter how hard I perform, those outcomes won't happen. My performance isn't instrumental in guaranteeing those outcomes. And then the last one, how attractive is those outcomes? So Johnson, in terms of deciding, yeah, no, I lied, guys. And also my 25%. Oh my gosh, yeah, a day off. Yeah, sorry. And also me giving away 25%. I lie all the time, man. Oh, Tariq, you've got zero chance, boy. To also just say for Johnson, the stuff that's attractive will be bucks and a promotion. So for this theory to work, you must believe that I have the skills, the abilities, and competencies. When I put in effort, I'll perform. When I perform, my performance is instrumental in guaranteeing outcomes. And those outcomes from a balance perspective is how much do I value those outcomes. It is a wonderfully clever theory, guys. And when you think of using it in an organization, it makes a lot of sense because you create the environment where you give people the tools, you give people the skills so that when they put in effort, they will perform. If they perform, there is a direct link between their performance. Their performance is instrumental in guaranteeing those outcomes. And then we give outcomes that people value. If you were to do this in deciding that you are going to study, you would have said to yourself, if I study, have I got the brain and have I got the capacity and time to perform? If I perform, what will be the outcomes? And it's A's and a bunch of things like passing, etc. And then how much value is in that? So when I think of lecturing this, okay, so I would go, if I put in efforts, will I be able to perform as a lecturer? Absolutely, I'm fantastic. If I perform, what are the outcomes? I'll get recognition from my students. I will get money. To also just say, sometimes it's avoiding negative outcomes. So also things like, I'm away from my wife. I know that's a positive. My wife is sitting I'm going to get something thrown at me in a second. And then how much do you value those? Wonderful theory within the context of an organization. So you can see that behavior is a combination of things, but it indicates to us the steps. My wife is just, sorry, guys, I'm petrified right now. If I'm not here next week, you'll know what happened. Tell my lawyer. So behavior is a combination of those, but this is the most important thing. People make decisions about performing, about the behaviors they display. And then different people will have different kinds of things that motivate them. For some people, it's recognition. For most of you, and you'll remember in the first day we did this course, I asked you why you were doing this. And most of you said, it's about a career, it's about growth, it's about promotion. And it's important to remember that, because when things get tough, you need to remember that you are here for a purpose. And then just the different elements: effort to performance expectancy, the first connect, performance to outcome, the instrumentality, and how much we value those. Okay, guys, I don't want to rush now. I'm going to stop there. You guys have got very quiet.